released in 1969 on Apple Records. The Beatles, Abbey Road. Yeah, take this for the thumbnail. And we should be done. Yes. This. This record right here. Yeah. The Beatles Abbey Road. What can I say about this? I mean, it's one of the greatest, let alone Beatles, but albums of all time. Definitely in the top 10 for me. And yeah, and I have to say, we have we have to go through track by track. Okay, Come Together. Okay, I got a little funny aside for like Come Together. Uh, I'm kind of sick of playing this song. Now, I'm not saying that like Come Together is bad or anything, but it's a good tune. But it's so easy that we at college decided to play it all the goddamn time, and we kept on playing it. But our singer didn't want to play it, even though it was piss easy, because he was very particular. He was a metalhead, and he didn't like the Beatles, which we were all like, fucking hell. But we kept on playing it, no matter what. We would keep on playing it, and it became sort of a running joke, a running gag in our college. So we it's got some fun memories and then some bad memories because of how annoying it would get at times. And we would be like, nope, 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 nope. And whenever we heard that bum bum ba-da-dum, that famous riff, we would be get some PTSD. It was like Vietnam with just less death, you know. But no matter what, this song still slaps like hell. This song, I have to say, Ringo's drumming is definitely the highlight. It's very, it's not just keeping in time, it's memorable, which really helps make it really easy to play along with because of how because Ringo's drumming is really memorable. There's of course Lennon's vocals, classic rock and roll singer Lennon was. He was definitely he was he definitely oozes with cool in this song with the random made up lyrics about Coca-Cola and monkey fingers and uh hair down to his knees. Well, I mean, none of them really had hair down to their knees, but they definitely had. Well, maybe Lennon might be the closest with hair down to his knees. And also, apparently, Paul is dead because of this cover, because he's wearing those shoes, even though they shot this cover in July, or like, like a, at this, like, it's as hot. It's like 18 degrees, which is basically 60. It's 60. 60. What's the bloody measurement that Americans use? I have no fucking clue. Hamburgers. I don't know. But anyway, it's still got a very smooth but yet effective guitar solo. The bass line is so infectious and so memorable that you kind of get sick of it, but then you always come back to that bloody bass line. That bass line is so easy but so memorable, and it demonstrates how Paul can get away with just playing a few notes. The whole band, the chorus feels anthemic, like this was meant to be played in an arena, even though the Beatles had given up playing live at this point because they were about to play live, but the Let It Be project kind of was a failure in a way. It was only salvaged by that guy. Yeah, Phil Spector. Very controversial person and a very violent man who is very, very just. Let's just skip over that. That's just meandering though. I would rate Come Together I would give it a 7. Why it isn't like an 8 or a 9? It's mostly because it's overplayed and because of our fault and my peers' fault. Overall, it is a solid song though, and also the lyrics kind of meander. There's not much, but they sound cool. Everything else about the track is absolutely wonderful, especially George's guitar playing, and when you can hear the ambience from the guitars as well, really makes you feel like you're in the sesh. I'm sorry, the neighbors are just mowing the lawn. Yeah. Okay, anyway, moving swiftly on to the next track, which is Something. I always like I always like somebody would say play something, and I'm like, I don't know, I can't think of anything, and I'll just say I meant play something by the Beatles, and I'll go, oh yeah, I understand what you mean. Do you want to hear Eleanor Rigby or do you want to hear Don't Let Me Down? It's a simple joke, but it's a very good joke, and this is a very good song. In fact, possibly one of the greatest love songs of all time, declared by old Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra. Frankie boy. If you Frankie boy, he was definitely particular with his taste in music. He didn't really like rock music and what the Beatles was doing. So that is high regard from somebody in such a prestigious place. George is pouring his heart out. It's basically a love ballad dedicated to Patty Boyd, his girlfriend at the time. But yeah, you can definitely tell that he really cares so much. There's also a bit of his Indian influence in there, though he had to change the lyrics because God, because Allah is like actually, what religion was George? I think he was more of a spiritual person. He saw all religions as one and the same, which is quite a good philosophy. As much as Family Guy may beg to differ, but I would say this is definitely the highlight on the whole entire album, especially that guitar solo. It's so short, it's so sweet, but it's so melodic. It doesn't. It it really punches home the meaning of the song, that this is a real love ballad. This is possibly one of the first ballads that didn't involve a piano ever made, possibly. I don't know, but it's definitely one of the greatest ones. I mean, and it's Ringo's drumming, of course, is excellent, keeping in time, but also managing to add tasteful fills, especially at the beginning. That drum intro is so iconic, and then you had the melodic guitar line, then and then the beautiful chord sequence, and it's just so simplistic, but so full of emotion and passion. And of course, you got Paul with his tasteful fills that don't overshine the main melody. But unfortunately, the 2009 pressing kind of has the bass way too loud and not just right in the mix. And I do prefer the 2019 remix of this album. Unfortunately, I had the 2009 remaster, so I'm a bit unlucky, really. But yeah, there's not much. I don't know if John played on this song, but and to top it all off, the cherry on the cake is the orchestral arrangement. George Martin was definitely the fifth Beatle, no doubt about it. Brian Epstein helped them in the early days and helped them get to where they were. Billy Preston played with them as a solo musician, and Pete Best and Stuart Sutcliffe were there in the early days, of course, but George Martin was there throughout all their career except Let It Be. Well, a little bit of Let It Be, but anyway. But I have to say, George Martin's arrangements on this whole entire album really creates this lush environment and immerses you in the world and the settings that the Beatles were creating in this album. And on the complete opposite end of that, we got Maxwell's Silver Hammer. A funny little story, innit? The lyrics are definitely like Paul's singing this in a very jovial manner, and it's clear that you're not meant to take this song seriously. And I feel like the rest of the Beatles and many people who cited this as the worst song on Abbey Road don't get the point. This is meant to be their Monty Python-esque song. This is meant to be dark humour. This is meant to be like, oh shit, I killed someone. Oh damn. Oh no. How am I going to get rid of the mess? Something like that. More like serious and more jovial. And the Beatles were always jovial. Even up to this album. It goes to show that a bit of humour and a bit of lightheartedness, and it really takes you, it really it really gets rid of all the dramatic emotions and all the George pouring his heart out with his excellent, brilliant vocals and the harmonies that John and Paul add to that song makes it so grandiose. And then you go to this song, which is mostly just Paul singing, really, and John is actually playing guitar, most of the guitar parts, I believe. Because I think George is playing bass on this one, because there's not many overdubs on Abbey Road, and well, outside of the melody, but of course the melody was pretty like ambitious. But yeah, it's a fun little ditty. There's some nice, strong acoustic guitars to keep it all in there, and then you got Ringo pounding on the drums, and the hammer, which is not an actual hammer, by the way. It's I think it's a bell or something. I don't know. I don't think it's a cowbell. I can't remember, but I do recall watching a video that says it precisely. I might link it in the description. It's the Hollyhobs. They're a great YouTube channel. You should definitely check them out. And it's the story behind Maxwell Silverhammer. And that's how I found out that all the Beatles, except for Paul McCartney, hated Maxwell Silverhammer. Probably because they took so much time and they did so many takes to get it right, and it was really fucking expensive. So of course they would fucking hate it, wouldn't they? Anyway, it's a great song, but the next one is even better. Oh darling, Paul is doing is Paul's best vocal work in a long time, ever since the early Beatles days, or even Sgt. Pepper. But yeah, this is probably his best vocal performance. He's really screaming, and I think it really works well because it doesn't come right after something. Because if it came after something, it would come across as a bit cheesy. But because there was a bit of a break, we understand it. And this one also has all the guitar work done by John as well, I think. And John, people put down John a lot. People don't like John Lennon. Well, I can't blame you. He had bad taste in women, obviously. Like, why the fuck go for Yoko when you had Cynthia Lennon, who was beautiful, and then Yoko Ono is Yoko Ono. Plus, Cynthia Lennon didn't try to scream in any of his records, and was quite a nice person and very forgiving as well, considering how poorly he treated her and Julian. In fact, Paul McCartney was more of a father to Julian. At least he got to do it over with Sean Lennon and Yoko. Yeah, she didn't treat Julian like I feel so. Hang on. I feel sorry for Julian Lennon. Okay, his life has been bad. At least he got one hit, which was pretty good actually. It's a pretty good song, and he can sing very well. He can. But yeah, it's been a bit difficult for him in his life. But anyway, Oh Darling, yeah, great song, isn't it? The staccato riff is just mesmerizing, and 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 it's like so hypnotizing. And George plays reasonable bass. It's not as showy offy as Paul would do it, but he still does a really good job. Of course, there's the piano. Piano is and it's I'm impressed that he's even singing and playing piano. And he also starts with that augmented chord at the beginning, which really, really works. And I always say the augmented chord is the piano chord, sort of the 60s chord. The 60s was full of augmented chords, really to hammer home the emotion the and the core of a song. It does. You even hear it in bloody Life on Mars, which was only just 2 years after the 60s ended. So yeah, and it's a flipping great song. Oh yeah, Maxwell Silverhammer gets a 7.9 out of 10. Reason why it's not yet 8 is because it's it's like it's like I think they could have I don't know they could have made the synth line. The synth line is a bit irritating, to be honest, but it doesn't really, but only a little bit irritating. And Oh Darling would be a 10. Yes, I'm being serious. A 10. And yeah, it's great. Octopus's Garden is next, and it's a fun song. It's just a fun song. Not every Beatles song has to be A Day in the Life or Strawberry Fields Forever or something on this album. Yeah. And it's just a fun, light-hearted song about going underneath the sea with an octopus. And if Ringo Starr comes out today and says, "Oh, it's actually about drowning to death or some shit," I will legit laugh my ass off, because this song is so upbeat that I cannot see any dark meaning in it. There's no hidden meaning about murder or violence or rape or miscarriaging or pregnancy or whatever, or like drugs or alcohol or anything. It's just pure. It's just childlike innocence that we all miss, really. We all miss being children, don't we? We always long for the times when things were a little bit more simpler. It's only just that school beat the child like wonder out of you. Because if you acted like a child in school when you're actually a child, you would be punished, really. Because they don't want you to act like children and have fun. They want you to be an adult. And it's quite sad, actually, really. But the song is fun. You got some tasteful fills by, especially at the beginning, by George Harrison, and a really SpongeBob-ian, if that's even a word, kind of style of guitar. Almost like this is the exact song that may have gotten Steve Hillenburg to create SpongeBob SquarePants. May he rest in peace. Because it does remind me a lot of it, and I'm surprised it hasn't been in any SpongeBob episodes outside of the fact that the Beatles have a tight grip on the copyright. But this song is like over 50 years old. Come on. So yeah, we've had a load of like sort of pop songs with a bit of a rock edge on it. But now, oh yeah, and Lennon's vocal harmonies are absolutely lovely on that song, and I can tell it's mostly Lennon because he's got that distinct voice. But most of it's been pop/pop rock, kind of soft classic rock stuff. I bet you weren't expecting this behemoth, this prog rock song. There's no other way to describe it. Stoner metal, prog rock. I Want You, She's So Heavy. Probably one of the most blues rock based. It's just a behemoth. John Lennon's vocal line, which follows the guitar line, played by John Lennon, by the way, and possibly even sung at the same time, which is. Oh, what? Well, actually, nah, the vocal melody, I think it's a little bit easier that way, so he can actually sing along with the lead guitar. But then there's also the call and response between the lead guitar and his vocal harmonies and the rest of the band at the beginning. And you also have that strange Radiohead sounding riff, which I feel like sort of reminds me of Paranoid Android in a way, using some of the chord shapes from Paranoid Android. And it's just chaos, and Paul McCartney is basically playing lead bass on this. This album is just a showcase. He's not just doing what a normal bassist does. The tone on his bass is absolutely great. The Rickenbacker is probably the best sounding Paul has ever been in his whole entire career. And I have to say, I fucking love it. I wish he kept the Rickenbacker. Unfortunately, Rickenbackers are really big and really heavy. That's what she said. Because I don't know why. God intended it. Rickenbacker people wanted it to be that way, to torture people. But anyway, yes, it all culminates in a loud with a stoner riff. Bum, 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 which only involves 3 frets and 2 strings. And that is pretty freaking cool, isn't it? Yeah, this song oozes coolness with its bluesy lead lines, with its melodic and tasteful bass fills, and also keeping in time as well, which is kind of tricky on the bass with the bigger, chunkier strings and the drumming as well. Yeah, and allowing each musician a time to shine as well. And And you even have Billy Preston on the keyboards, which is so fucking cool, and another extra layer of cool. And it only involves 6 words, 6 unique words in total, or something. Maybe 15. I think it's actually 15. Yeah, 15 unique words to make a hit song that is the Beatles' longest real song. Because Revolution 9 does not count, okay? Revolution 9 is not a song. It's a travesty. And also a bit experimental. Anyway, it's a fucking cool song. And it all culminates and it just stops. And it was originally meant to be the last song on the record. It wouldn't work as well, though, would it? If it just stopped, that would probably feel a bit anticlimactic for the end of the Beatles' career. The end makes more sense as the end, not She's So Heavy. She's So Heavy leads perfectly into the breezy and lovely ballad. Well, it's not a ballad, it's an acoustic tune written by George Harrison. Walking is his part, kind of like uh, kind of like here in his house in Esher, you know, and he's with Eric Clapton. They got capos, and then he started to hum the songs. They got guitars, and they start to hum the songs, and then they play the melody and figure out the chords, and it all came out as this beautiful guitar parts, which sound almost like a synth in a way. Then you also have an actual synth being used on this album. This is probably one of the first pop rock albums to use, or let's just say rock instead of pop, rock albums to use synths. And yeah, it definitely adds another layer of complexity in the arrangements. Of course, George Harrison singing those lovely, beautiful songs, almost calming, almost relaxing, and making you feel like you just had a warm hug from a nice person, you know. It's like meeting your girlfriend for the first time, and she smiles at you, and you can't do anything else but smile back. And you walk up to her and say, "Hi." And then she said, "I have a boyfriend." Let's just forget about that bit though. Anyway, pretty good song. And it's such a contrast to um uh, the last song, and also Ringo, also as an aside, also did some great drumming, and he only he didn't use like time signatures to figure out what he's playing, and Now the Sun Has Not Come Out. Great. Anyway, it will come back anyway. It's still in the sky. It always is in the sky, especially on a sunny afternoon like this. And yeah, it's a great song. And yeah, Ringo figured out the drumming by feel and show and into musical intuition, which not many people consider is more important than actual knowing the names and the terminology of like some of the things. But having your own unique way of figuring out music. Of course, naming helps like regular musicians figuring out, but the names aren't as important as what they do, and what they do is more important. So yeah, the Beatles knew music theory, but they knew it in the heart and the mind rather than the names of it. They usually say 4 beats to the bar or something. Or so yeah, it's what else is there to say? Lennon had the last laugh. The most popular Beatles song is "Here Comes the Sun." Not Lennon, I mean Harrison. Harrison had the last laugh, didn't he? Because it is the most popular Beatles song. And that leads us into Because is probably one of the most amazing harmonies because they triple tracked like all their harmonies, making their 9 voices in the mix, which gives it a very mesmerizing and very beautiful, luscious sound with the synths and Lennon playing his guitar, and Ringo was there, like keeping time still, even though there's no drums on the song. I sort of consider this song an interlude though, because it's not really like doesn't really have a chorus or anything. It has a middle like more than a chorus, so yeah, it's still cool though. Still really cool and really interesting, and it holds up even to this day. Nothing sounds like it. I swear it is. They're influent. They're influent. They're they're influential. Okay, influential. Why can I not say things today? Influ. Fuck. I don't know. Influence. In, in, influence. Influential. Influential. Yeah, they're very influential, but people still haven't catched up to like to their music, and that is the beauty of the Beatles, because nobody wants to copy the Beatles. Okay, and now the behemoth, the one you've been waiting for, the one this whole entire album has been leading to. You Never Give Me Your Money, the start of the Abbey Road melody. Yes, the Abbey Road melody, the melody that the album is so famous for. You Never Give Me Your Money is not just one song. It's actually possibly, I think, has three, four, one, two, three unique sections. Well, actually, four if you include the that riff at the end of it with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all good children goes to heaven. Paul playing the piano and his lonely voice, and then George doing what he was originally going to do on Hey Jude, which was do a lead fill as a call and response. But this song, Paul was like, yeah, you can do that actually. And it really adds to the atmosphere of the song. And it's almost melancholic in a way, because it has a minor tonality to it, with the whole "you never give me your money" talking to the record company and all that malarkey, and the guy who was the manager of the Beatles at the time, who was kind of a scumbag. Yeah, it was, and this song was about it. And then it goes into the more cheery, upbeat, happy place with the old timey, like Western piano tone as well. Then you also got John joining in on the guitar as well, with the triads in the triads in the "Oh That Magic Feeling" part of that part of the song, that really shows that really, and it's almost like Maxwell's Silver Hammer, but a little bit better because it's less about murder, but it's a little bit even more upbeat and more entertaining to listen to. Then, of course, that Lennon's guitars are accented by the kick drum or the snare. I think it's the kick and then the bass. But there's also, and then that transitions into a badass twin guitar solo from Lennon and Harrison, I believe. That that really is really technically great and adds so much tension to it. And then we also get into the more rockabilly bit, the more like 50s rock and roll kind of bit. And it just goes all over the place, and Paul has so many different voices. The man sounds completely different on each bit, and then we get into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, good children, go to heaven. Possibly one of the best lines in the whole entire album, in my opinion, because it really. And you also have the guitar lines at the end, closing this bit out, and then we go into Sun King, which is sort of a spiritual successor to Because, and also a bit of Don't Let Me Down in there as well, which is so super cool. And also, Here Comes the Sun King. Here Comes the Sun. Yeah. Sort of tying the album all together in a nice bow with more mesmerizing with more mesmerizing vocals, but Lennon takes lead vocals in this song with the Everybody's Happy bit, and then after that beautiful interlude, a beautiful song ending, we go straight into via Ringo's drum fill, and we go into Mean Mr. Mustard, which is pretty funny, and it's about a ridiculously grotesque, horrible man and his sister Polyphene Pan, and he goes to the Queen, and it's the only place he's ever been, and Lennon's vocals are a little okay. I wouldn't say it's my favorite song on the album. You know, it's like uh, the 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 weird like synth lines a bit strange for a Beatles. It's pretty strange for a Beatles song. It doesn't even sound like a solo Beatles song. But yeah, but then that weirdness with the whole stingy man goes and transitions into his sister Polyphene Pan, yeah, who may in fact be like Lola and not actually be a woman, so to speak. Maybe who knows? But yeah, it's great. It's a flipping great song, and Lennon is showing how much you can do with just basic open chords. Then of course George Harrison goes into a flipping fuming guitar solo, clean with a little bit of dirt and edge onto it, very to transition us into the next song with Lennon saying, "Oh look out!" almost to say he's being like run over by a car or something. I don't know. Ask Paul McCartney. And she came in back through the bathroom window, which is actually based on a real life encounter between Paul McCartney and some stalker fans, or as we like to call them, stans. Yes, stans even existed way before Eminem made that song, okay? They Stans are just creepy, and I don't support Stan in any way, shape, or form. But we also have some. We continue that. There's also a little bit of organic continuation from You Never Give Me Your Money with the call and response guitar line. But this is more of a rock song. This is definitely a rock song. Lennon is playing, still keeping the rhythm going with his acoustic guitar. But then you also have Did Anybody Wonder, which is possibly one of the greatest like sections in all rock, middle eights in all of rock music. It is so cool. This song screams cool. And you also got Lennon singing singing that very adds a lot of atmosphere, and you could almost mistake it for a synth at some points, you know. But yeah, that section of the melody ends, and then we got the last three songs on this album, or four if you include the other song, but the other song is barely even a song. You got Golden Slumbers, a beautiful song. McCartney singing like it's its last rodeo. George playing reasonable bass on this is actually quite good. Even adding some weight. We got George Martin with the orchestral arrangements on this song. This song feels like a melody. Feels like a song. When you first listen to it, it's like, I've heard this song before, and it's so familiar, but yet you've never heard this song before. And it it makes sense why they use this in adverts and everything, because this song really makes you more calmer and more likely to persuasion. But of course, the Beatles didn't intend it that way. It's only advertisements that intended it that way. But yeah, it is a beautiful song, and it's I don't know if it was dedicated if he had a newborn child at this time, but I don't think he had. And then we get another drum fill, so many drum fills on this album that really transition everything. And then we got Carry That Weight with Ringo Starr on vocals, and you can really hear him through the mix. It is so flipping good, this song, with the "You Never Give Me Your Money" melody coming in in it as well, and then on the bloody hell, the orchestra literally fits that rock aesthetic and punctuates the dramaticness of it. And of course, he changes the lyrics a little bit, and he's and and in the middle of the celebrations, you break down, and then dun, boom, and then the bass does a nice slide on that, boom, da dum bum bum, and then you go, boy, you better carry that weight, which I think works well as sort of a football chant more so than Seven Nation Army or It's Coming Home. Like the Euros are going on right now, and also another tasty guitar solo by George Harrison that probably has some of the best. That is probably got a really good tone and really dirty. And most of the time he's playing pentatonic licks, and he's being so creative with these pentatonic licks, and also Mixolydian, obviously, because most guitarists use pentatonic and Mixolydian, and maybe other things. Most metal guitarists use like the Phrygian scale to add some Middle Eastern kind of things, but you know, there's a lot you can do with the pentatonic scale and the Mixolydian scale. And both of them sound so cool. Like, I mean, AC/DC got a lot of use out of the Mixolydian scale. But yeah, it is great. And then we transition to the chords from the end of You Never Give Me Your Money, played by John Lennon, of course, because it's that signature Lennon style. and then we go to the last song. The last song, the end. We get epic lead line from George, very tasteful, just like a few notes to really punctuate, but a little feel and technicality put into it. And then we got George and John following each other on the guitar. Only John's playing the rhythm part of it. But yeah, and then we got Paul McCartney screaming down the mic, which is probably the longest lyric, the longest string of set words in this whole entire song. Actually, no, the last bit, but his lines in this song probably like both his only lead lines in this song were probably singing, probably bookend this whole entire song. And then you get a drum solo from Ringo Starr. Not complicated, but enough to get a crowd cheering and people clapping along, because it keeps the beat and keeps the rhythm going on. A lot of drum solos forget that, oh yeah, I'm a rhythm player. Shouldn't I focus more on rhythm rather than melody in my drum playing? And Ringo focuses more on the rhythm, but he adds as much melody as he could possibly can. And then we go into a D7, at A7, A7, D7 chords, and then we start off with Paul with his more jazzier like guitar line, you know, with a very clean but a little bit of dirt. And then we get George using his pentatonic scale licks, but there's still a little bit of it's still not. He still makes a lot of use out of it with his vibe, his kind of unique style. And then we got John, who's just trolling by just playing like the most easiest lead guitar lines ever, and we get that for each of them 3 times basically, and it's like interchange, and it's one of the most iconic like dual guitar solos of all time, and we get them, and John closes it off, and he's got a rough, gritty sound, and it kind of hints towards their solo careers and how they would write guitar solos for their solo careers. But then it all stops when Paul comes in with the piano, and then he says the lyrics. And in the end, call and response guitar solos. You got John and George call and response from between each other, and Paul. Well, not at Paul on vocals, obviously. The love you take is equal to the love. The message has stayed the same all this time. Love Me Do was their first #1 hit song, and this was the last proper song on a Beatles album. And it's so beautiful, and then we get a lush guitar line, a lush, complicated melody from George, but still great. And then we end with that, with the orchestra following on, and then the da, whatever note that is, and it ends on an optimistic note. Remember, this is 1969. Nobody was feeling optimistic. The Rolling Stones concert killed the hippie movement. King Crimson and Black Sabbath were making waves, and Blue Sheer and Martin Luther King Jr. died, and it seemed as though the 60s was going to end on a somber note. But then the Beatles came around and released their final studio album, and it ends on an optimistic note, because the Beatles were quite an optimistic band. They were quite a good, happy-go-lucky band. And of course, there's a bit of silence after this song. Quite a lot, actually. And then you realise there's a hidden track, one of the first hidden tracks of all time, that isn't even on the back of the record. Which, of course, is a happy coincidence that blue dress lady is there. But yeah, it's Her Majesty, which is quite a funny, goofy song. Shows that they had a sense of humour and they weren't taking themselves seriously. And if you don't like the song as much as the rest of the album, you can just skip it, really. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to listen to the whole entire album if you don't want to. But us Beatles fanatics appreciate the humour. We appreciate all of it. Abbey Road is possibly one of the most diverse and most innovative Beatles albums they released in their time as the Beatles. And it's possibly one of the best albums of all time. Up there with Dark Side, up there with my favourite Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper, and all the greats, like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, you know, Rumours, all those great albums, Led Zeppelin 4, it's as good and maybe a little bit better than most of them. I would say it's in top 5 for me. One of the greatest, one of the most beautiful, conceptually, albums ever. It leagues and bounds upon everything, except for, of course, the Crimson King, yeah. Except for Crimson King, in the Court of the Crimson King, and Led Zeppelin 2. At the time, there wasn't much really out there that was as experimental as this. This was a generation-defining album. This inspired so many people to pick up the guitar, or the piano, or the drums, or even the bass, really, and vocals. Everything on this album is great. Even the songs that I'm like, oh, they're alright, I still think they're pretty fucking good, and in some moods, especially if I'm drunk, I think they're pretty fucking fantastic. Like Maxwell Silverhammer, I could be like singing it with my friends, and it's just such a banger to sing with your friends. Bang bang, especially when you're drunk. It's such a great song, and yeah, I would give this a solid 10. A 10. This album is a 10. This album is possibly my favourite Beatles album of all time. Maybe my opinion is fluctuating all the time, and I hate that. But still, classic album. Buy it on vinyl, buy it on CD, whatever. You need to listen to this. It is a passage for all musicians to listen to the Beatles, but most specifically, this album is possibly the way to bring beginners into the Beatles' discography and get as a gateway drug. It is such a addictive album. I don't know how many times I've heard this album. I probably heard it like over 100 times. And it's got classic radio hits, even if they're overplayed. And I have nothing more to say. This album is so fucking fantastic. Beautiful chord progressions, memorable melodies, all the instruments, Ringo, John, Paul, George, Billy Preston, George Martin, all of them all came together to make a masterpiece. Buy it now. And that is all. And I'll see you on the next video where I'll possibly be doing a cover of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. I'll see you then. Goodbye. Goodbye.